Hey everybody, my name is Taylor Glenn and this is my channel Taylor Tries, where I try new things and I try to teach you new things. And today I'm going to teach you how to juggle rings. Like this. Super simple. We're going to have a great time. Yeah. Before we jump into juggling rings, I want to take a second and thank everyone who is a member of my Otter Club over on Patreon. It's because of people like you that I can make these tutorials free for everyone else, so thank you so much. If you want to join the Otter Club, you can do that. It's only $2 a month and it helps me out a lot. Plus you get access to my whole library of extended tutorials. In the extended version of this tutorial, I'll teach you how to do the popular 3-ring pull down with a pancake finish, so you can amaze all your friends or just have a good time. If you want access to that, it's only $2, plus you get access to all of the other extended tutorials as well. There's a link in the description if you want to do that. Rings are an awesome step in any juggler's journey. They're really beautiful, they look great when you juggle them, and they're a good intermediate step between juggling balls and juggling clubs. They are a little bit easier than clubs just because there's no spin associated with them. Now there are two downsides to rings. The first being that they are really hard to do outside. Even a little bit of wind will push the ring and make it hard to control. So if you are wanting to learn rings, make sure you either practice them inside so that you're not having to deal with the wind, or if you're juggling outside, try to do it on a less windy day. And if you really have to do it with the wind, juggle into the wind. So if the wind is coming towards me, this is how I want to juggle rings, and you should be able to at least get some practice in. The other downside is that they can be very hard on your hands. A lot of jugglers do not enjoy juggling rings, especially once you get into the higher numbers, because of how painful the edges can be. So keep that in mind, make sure you're taking breaks so you're not hurting your hands. And if you get a ring that has sharp edges, just take some sandpaper and sand them up so that the edges aren't so sharp. That way they won't cut up your hands as bad. But I'm gonna try to teach you how to juggle them so that it's the least painful way possible, and hopefully you find them really fun. All right, so let's jump into it. Obviously, to juggle 3 rings, you're gonna need 3 rings. Fortunately, a beginner set of rings is pretty affordable. They're not too expensive. I have a link in the description for the beginner set that I recommend. The only rings I really recommend you don't get are those Duncan ones with the flames on them. They're terrible. They will break very quickly, and they don't feel good, so don't get those. Again, there's a link in the description for a better beginner set that will not hurt your hands or break really quickly. So let's do it. Let's learn some rings. Yeah. Let's just start with 1 ring. Obviously, that's what we're supposed to do. So first we gotta learn how to hold a ring. Obviously, when we're juggling balls, our hands are flat like this and we're throwing up. With a ring, it's a little different. We're going to hold the ring more out like this, and we're gonna come down and up. So to start, we're gonna put out our hand, and we're going to just put the ring right here and then close our fingers around it. Now when you do this, I want you to be careful not to put the ring in the webbing of your finger, because that will end up hurting very quickly, and it can even cause nerve damage. So when we're catching the ring, we actually want to catch it more right here and then close our hand. So just hold the ring, put your hand out, put the ring right in that palm, just like this, and then close your fingers around it. Now different jugglers have a different way of holding rings. The 2 main ways I've seen is to put the thumb either on the edge of the ring, like this, or to put the thumb on the inside of the ring. I don't think it really matters, whichever feels more comfortable to you. So we're here, we have the ring sitting in our palm with our fingers wrapped around it, and now it's a lot like juggling a ball. We're going to drop our hands down with our wrist just a little bit. Now when you release, you're going to pull your wrist back a little bit, and you're going to release your palm open. And we're gonna catch it like this. And then we bring our hand down and our wrist a little bit, and then pull our wrist back towards us, up, down, up, down. And when we do this, it's gonna be just like 3 balls. We want to release the ring across our body, creating sort of an X, and aim like that. Now ideally what you want to avoid is throwing the ring too horizontally, because that will push it too far out and make you catch it at a strange angle. You also don't want to throw it too straight up and down, because then the rings will collide. The way I like to think of it is creating an X, but I'm sort of aiming more towards my neck rather than like my belly button, so that it does a nice X in front of my eyes. Up, catch, up, catch. And again, catch with the palm, not with the webbing of the finger. Up, down. Once you feel comfortable with that, pick up a second ring. All right, we got 2 rings. Look at us moving right along. So to juggle 2 rings, it's going to be just like we're doing 2 balls. We're gonna go right, left, catch, catch. Now when we do this, try to keep in mind sort of keeping it vertical so it doesn't get too horizontal like that, and try not to hit the other ring. So up, up, catch, catch. Up, up, catch, catch. And again, try to be careful of where you're catching it. Don't put too much pressure on the webbing of that hand. The other thing I want you to keep in mind when you're working on 2 is to not let the ring go out too far. I would personally say that's one of the hardest things about rings, is that they do tend to want to go forward. You gotta learn how to release a little later so that the wrist is almost up when you're letting go, as opposed to out. It can be kind of hard to get that control. Just keep practicing, work with 2 until you can get them pretty straight up and down, so that they're not going forward. Once you feel pretty good about that, we're not actually gonna pick up a 3rd one. We're going to do another exercise with 2 rings. I promise we're gonna get to the good stuff soon, don't worry. One of the hardest things about learning 3 rings is learning how to release that very first ring. It can be pretty awkward holding more than 1 ring, and especially releasing that very first one without having the second one freak out. So first, hold 1 ring just like you would. Let it sit sort of up in the pad of your palm, just like this. Now we're gonna close our 2 back fingers on that ring. That's your pinky and your ring finger. From here, we're going to put the next ring on the remaining 2 fingers, and then bring them in and hold them against your palm, just like this. So we have our front 2 fingers holding the front ring, and then the back 2 fingers holding the back ring. Now it's worth noting, some people will actually do 1 finger on the back and 3 fingers in the front, or even 3 fingers in the back and 1 finger in the front, or they'll do 3 and 1 with the index finger between the 2 rings. I personally find that much harder, but I have seen some people who have good luck with that, especially with the index finger in between, just because they're more comfortable having control that way. But feel free to play around with it. If it feels better with 1 finger in front, or even 3 fingers in front, do that. There's no right way in order to hold 2 rings. So to release these, we're going to release this front ring first, and then the back ring. Now to have some control over this front ring, we're going to use our thumb and put our thumb either in front of it or on the edge of it, and the 2 fingers. And we're going to use that relationship to sort of control that front ring. So take a second and just get comfortable sort of controlling that ring, pushing it up and down, getting a feel for using those 3 fingers. Now we can try throwing it. We're going to drop our hand down just like we did when we were throwing 1. And now we're going to rely on those 3 fingers to push that ring up and let it go and catch it in the other hand. Just try that a few times doing the first ring. Just get comfortable releasing that. Again, what will probably happen when you first try to release it is it'll either go forward or it'll go too far back. Just practice it over and over. Again, it really comes with that control of the thumb pulling the ring back and those 2 fingers. And eventually you'll be able to do it pretty accurately. Once you can do that first ring, now we want to do the second one. The second one should just be in our palm, and basically we're set up just like we would have done it before, like this. So we can do 1, 2, catch. Now this brings up an interesting question. How do you collect 2 rings in 1 hand? It's very simple. You're gonna catch the first one, just like you would normally catch them. You're gonna open up your palm a little bit, let the ring sort of sit there between your palm and your fingers, and just catch that 3rd one there. Now, if that's really hard for you, I have seen some people catch the first ring and then sort of drop their hand down and open it like this so that they can just catch the second one on top. I don't think there's any real right way to do it. It really depends on what you're more comfortable with. Do what feels best. The collect is less important. You know, you can always just collect it like that if you need to, but just so you know how to do it eventually when you want to get super good at rings. But that release is very important. You're not going to be able to start 3 if you do not know how to release 1 from holding 2. So practice that, make sure you can do it pretty well, and then once you're good with it, let's pick up a 3rd ring. Okay, 3 rings, look at us. We're just running along, all awesome. So to juggle 3 rings, we're gonna combine that first exercise, which was 1, 2, with the second exercise, which was 1, 2. So we're gonna hold 2 in 1 hand, holding it whichever finger way you want. and one in the other hand. Now it's gonna just be like juggling balls. Just do a flash. 1, 2, 3. Now when you do this, remember everything that we worked on with 2 rings. We want to drop our wrist down, pull it back so that the ring doesn't go flying forward. Rings should have a slightly more vertical throw than maybe you do when you're juggling 3 balls. And try to keep it pretty narrow, sort of aiming for our chin or our neck. Because we do not want to do this. That's going to be too wide. The rings are going to freak out. But you also don't want to do straight up and down. And you want to throw them pretty high so you can have time to juggle them. So 1, 2, 3, catch. And that's a flash. Now, to keep juggling them, you just keep juggling them. It's always right, left, just like juggling 3 balls. Now you're juggling rings. Our favorite section, troubleshooting. I already covered a bunch of the problems that you're probably experiencing throughout the tutorial, but just to wrap it up, I'll cover those again right now. First thing you gotta remember is rings are totally different. It's a new style of juggling, so it might take you some time. So just keep at it, keep practicing it, take your time, be patient. But as I said earlier, one of the most common problems with juggling rings is that you throw forward and you end up chasing them. Again, that's very common. From what I can tell, that means that you are either pushing the ring out, so you're extending your arm, which you shouldn't be doing. Your elbow should be in. You should be throwing back, not forward. Or you're releasing the ring too early and it is spinning outward. So what we want to do is we want to use our wrist to kind of pull it back and release it when our wrist is up. That way it will push the ring up as opposed to out. The second common issue that I see is sort of the inverse of that, where people will actually pull back. So what you're probably doing is using a little too much wrist and releasing the ring when it's here instead of up. So if you do that, the ring will go back. So just focus on sort of lifting up with the ring. You're pushing up. The ring will follow your hand. So pull back a little bit so that it's spinning, and also release up like that. If you release the ring with your hand pointing forward, it's going to go forward. If you release your ring with your fingers pointing back, it's going to go back. So we want to push our hand upward and release the ring that way. The last issue I see often with beginners is that the ring will be wobbling instead of creating a nice straight line. Now it is pretty normal for a ring to occasionally wobble a little bit. Not every throw is going to be perfect, but if you're finding that the ring is wobbling quite a bit, then that probably has to do with your spin. Make sure you're putting enough spin on it. Now we're not spinning it. It's not, you know, a razor blade that would hurt. It's just a natural spin. It's gonna spin on its own, but just using that wrist, we're gonna pull it back and it'll spin. The other thing that causes that wobble is if you're throwing it with a slight twist and you're not throwing it in a straight line. Again, we wanna start at our hip, bringing the ring down and then throwing a very straight line to the point we wanna hit. Again, I aim for sort of my chin and do that. It's very important to release the ring in that line. If for some reason you're throwing here, but you're releasing it like this, the ring is going to wobble and you won't catch it. If you're putting any sort of twist on your hand, if you're releasing like this, then that will cause it to wobble. Or if you're releasing it like this, that will cause it to wobble. Again, we want to follow straight through with our hand, create a nice straight line to the point we want to hit. But again, all those things just come with experience and practice and time. So get out there, juggle 3 rings, and try to correct things as you go. The last thing I want to say is just be careful where you juggle rings. I would say of all of the props, these have the most potential for damaging things. You would think it would be clubs, but in my experience, it's not. Because they have so little resistance in the air, they can come down quite hard. So if you throw them towards something, that surface area can really damage it. So just be careful, especially with people or yourself. If you throw this and it hits your little sister or somebody, having a ring to the head can actually cause more damage than a club just because it's so thin. I know this from experience. I have a scar on my lip from juggling rings. Now I was doing a trick that I was not ready to do. I was trying to juggle 5 rings and do a hard thing. You're not gonna get hurt just juggling 3 rings. Just be careful not to catch it with your face. If you do find it coming down right at your head, either make sure you can catch it or just get out of the way. It's not worth trying to catch the rogue ring with your face. That's all I have on how to juggle the 3-ring cascade, unless you are a member of my Patreon, where you will get a bonus part where I teach you how to do the 3-ring pull down, which is just a really fun way to amaze your friends and just end 3 rings. It's pretty fun. So if you want access to that, you can see it immediately right now. It's $2. That's it. Either way, have fun juggling rings. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Of course, I will do my best to answer them, and have fun. We're going to pull back on our palm. Wipe off my glasses so that they're not all gross. Mostly for me. You can't tell, but I can tell. And I'd say about 90% of the time my glasses are dirty. So I'm sure that's just terrible for my eyes. But now they're clean. That's great.